Thanks. A couple final comments and then we'll entertain a few questions. I think the experience for all of us was pretty eye-opening today. Obviously, you don't have to go far to find a national story about what's happening here on our border, and I think the way that we were treated today with access to the men and women making the decisions, thoughtful responses to our questions. The mayors did not hold back on questions that were posed. I think we really wanted to be able to take back to our constituents and to our communities what we saw and what we felt here. And the leadership here in El Paso and the leadership at the border, I think, certainly made themselves available. I would say two maybe high-level takeaways. One, that the mayors are here and are committed to this situation and solving. They're not flying in for a photo. Challenge this humanitarian crisis is evident by the fact we were here last year and made some various press statements that we were with President Lopez Obrador about a month or so ago, talking about the challenges of migration and the impacts of tariffs. We're here again today because I think mayors are pragmatic. They're solution-oriented. We don't get to sort of pontificate and let perfect be the enemy of good. We have to solve issues. I think some of the most encouraging comments I heard today were from the mayors behind me who talked about absent perfect government support, what they've done in partnering with the private sector or with the philanthropic community or with their NGOs or the faith community to really solve issues when there's a face in front of you. And I think that's what mayors are best at, and that's what I think we're committed to doing. And secondly, I think not just that the mayors here certainly are very, very vested in this, but I think on behalf of our conference, we speak for mayors across the country, from the Northwest to the Northeast to the Midwest to the South. This situation impacts all of us. In my community in Metro Detroit, it's interesting that while it may not be the humanitarian side of this challenge, in large measure, it's the commerce side. In my area, it's the automotive industry that drives our economy. And when 22% of a Ford vehicle is made in Mexico and 17% of a General Motors vehicle, anything that impacts that has a massive impact on the people of our region. And so the nation's mayors, not just the 7 or 8 you see here standing before you today, are completely engaged in working with our partners and our colleagues in the federal government to continue to find, propose, and support common sense solutions. Behind me you have members that shade red and shade blue, but none of those discussions came up today because this is not partisan in the way we view it. This is about finding solutions to problems that are impacting our cities. So I think it was a very interesting visit. Again, it's not over. We'll continue with a trip to the Annunciation House after this. But we do want to thank all those who made the time for us today. There are other border visitors coming tomorrow from Washington. But our day was today. Our chance to speak to the Secretary of Homeland Security was, I think, personal and exceptional. And we look to continue to lead on this issue moving forward. So at this time, I'll take a few questions.
Yes. Did the Secretary share with you how and where unaccompanied migrant children are being treated and sheltered now?
As we walked through the facility, as I mentioned, we departed our bus and were treated exactly, they said, as a family would be coming over. So the first area that we saw was the area where medical treatment is given, where folks are determined if they're medically capable of moving forward or whether they need medical assistance. We then went to the area where they're processed. Of course, we didn't speak to anyone, but we sat and saw folks at computers as families came through. We then went and saw every part of the facility, at least in El Paso, from where the laundry's done to where the showers are given. And we really focused our attention on the El Paso facility. Obviously, most of you know that there's been a significant decline over the last several weeks. So many times there are comments to us where, had you seen this in May, it would look different than it does today. But our experience and our questions and our focus was mainly on the El Paso facility that we toured today. Other questions?
For the mayors who don't live in cities that are border cities, why did you guys feel like it was important to be here today?
Sure, I'll take that one. You know, I think there's a very unique, a very strong, and a very powerful brotherhood and sisterhood between mayors. And it is, I think, one of the unique areas of government where partisanship doesn't lead. We might have a different number of zeros as to how many people we serve, but generally there's a heart for service and a care for community. And that care for a community doesn't necessarily stop at your borders. Oftentimes it extends to another mayor who's having a challenge. And for me, this was very much an educational trip to better understand, so I can go back and tell my community what's happening. As you know, the media reports this in all different ways. I now have my version of walking through the facility, talking to leaders, both at Border Patrol and community leaders like Mayor Margo and Mayor Nichols and others on the border here, and I think can paint that story in my community even better.